A very good afternoon to one and all. Imagine we are sitting in an examination hall now, and then we are encountering a question whereby our prof said will not be tested. This could be probably because of a miscom between the prof and you, but would you be like flipping tables and getting angry on the spot? Obviously no, right? But that's what happened in Little India Riot, just that they were flipping cars instead of tables. So we label this as the miscommunication aggravated situation. My group today we have Neo, Justin, Dave, and Partivan together with myself. I'll be giving you the brief introduction now. Firstly, I'll be running through the brief timeline of the event, and take note that this timeline has been extracted from a COI generated by the Ministry of Home Affairs. As such, there shouldn't be any biasness at all. On 8 December 2013, at about 9:23 p.m., Mr. Saktivil Kumarvelu, aged 33 years old, fell in the path of a bus carrying over 40 foreign workers, and he died instantly due to severe head injuries. Phase 1, extrication and rescue. We label it as the pre-crisis state. From 9:30 to 10:15 p.m., SPF, SCDF, and Service Cisco responders were actively involved in extricating the body from underneath the bus. And also, they safely escorted the bus driver, Mr. Lee, and the timekeeper, Ms. Wong, away from the rioters. The rioters, who were initially targeting the anger at the bus driver and the timekeeper, later turned their attention to the responders, thinking the responders were, in a way, siding the timekeeper and the bus driver. Phase 2, awaiting arrival of SOC. We deem this as the crisis itself. From 10:15 to 10:45 p.m., the SPF officers had no choice but to hold their ground and hold their positions until the SOC, Special Operations Command, arrived. The SOC, however, were delayed due to traffic congestion and inefficient dissemination of deployment instructions. During this phase is when the majority of the violence and destruction took place. However, it's commendable that the SOC, upon arrival, swiftly dispersed the crowd and the rioters by 11:25 p.m. Phase 3, analyzing the riot, which we label it as the post-crisis. In this phase, after the riot was all settled, DPM Mr. HW0310 called for a COI to find out what exactly happened on that fateful day. Those rioters identified were then sentenced and deported back to India. There was also legal control being brought about in the area, and also there was much speculation that the foreign workers' lifestyle were not and welfare were not looked into. As such, after this event, that was looked into as well. With all that, my group and I have come up with 3 research questions to tackle today and to present to you. Namely, what are the major communication failures that worsen the crisis, how to improve on these respective failures, and how these lessons can be applied to a general workforce situation. The first 2 questions, as I've shown just now, we have split up into pre-crisis, crisis, and post-crisis, which will be tackled by Justin, Partivan, and Neo respectively. The last question will be tackled by Dave, who will be giving an overall wrap and conclusion as well. With that, I'll pass the time to Justin to talk to you about the pre-crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Kumaran. Hi everybody, my name is Justin. I'll be focusing on pre-crisis, and in particular, I'll be talking about the background information on the accident, factors that contributed to the riot, recommendation, and where does conflict management come into play. Mr. Kumarvelu actually cut in line to board the bus that would eventually taken him to his dormitory. However, Miss Wong boarded the bus to inform him to disembark because he was drunk, and it was against company policy to ferry drunk workers. At which point he complied. The bus then moved off when it was full. Mr. Kumarvelu followed slowly next to the bus. When he eventually picked up speed, he gave chase. He eventually lost his balance and fell into the path of the left tire, which crushed him and killed him upon impact. Now I'll be showing a video that actually reconstructs the events that led up to his death.
While we're looking into last December's riot in Little India, has almost 33-year-old Saktibel Gumarabelu died after he fell into the path of the bus, which was turning left from Tekka Lane onto Racecourse Road. Evidence at the hearing centered on how Mr. Gumarabelu died, with CCTV footage from the interior and exterior of the bus shedding more light on how the accident happened. Pieced together, it revealed an intoxicated Mr. Gumarabelu being asked to get off the bus after pulling down his shorts. The footage showed him voluntarily leaving the bus without being manhandled. He then walks along Tekka Lane before picking up speed and running after the bus. As the bus is about to turn onto Racecourse Road, Mr. Kumaravelu's right hand comes into contact with the left side of the bus. Seconds later, he loses his balance, falls directly into the path of the bus, and is run over. A forensic pathologist said it's likely he would have died instantaneously from his severe head injuries. At the time of the accident, the bus was moving at a slow speed. The footage also captured an angry crowd.
Moving on, I'll be talking about the factors that contribute to the riot, the misperceptions about the accidents and response, psychology and culture of the crowd, and alcohol intoxication. The crowd perceived Mr. Lee and Ms. Wong to be the alleged perpetrators of the death of Mr. Kumaravellu when they were eventually cleared. During the night, it would have been natural for them to assign blame to them because they were unaware of the circumstances that actually led to his death. And the crowd would have expected the perps to have been led away in handcuffs rather than being led away under the cover of officers' shields. This made the crowd feel that the local authorities were protecting their own instead of looking after the foreigners' interests, and this further angered the crowd. Psychology and culture of the crowd. As the crowd consisted mostly of foreigners, the committee of inquiry enlisted the help of Mr. Chakravarti to help provide insight onto the psychology of the crowd. He grew up as a native in India and he's now currently a Singapore citizen. He mentions that the law of the underdog, whereby passersby would plan together to take on a perceived bully, and the crowd would seek retributive justice on the perceived bully. And this is very common in India. And this was shown on the riot, on the night of the riot. Alcohol intoxication. Alcohol myopia reduces one's attention and focus. Frustration, as combined in an intoxicated state, can lead to a higher chance of aggressive behavior. Overreactions to perceived injustices happen because in an intoxicated state, people have higher chances to misjudge social cues and misread threats. So, due to the high chaos and stressful environment of that night, it makes sense why the crowd would have been very confrontational. Recommendation. The review on the role of first responders and subsequent training to effectively deal with large-scale public order incidences. Because prior to the incident, only the Special Operations Command were taught how to deal with riots and not first responders. Now, conflict management. The rescue personnel adopted the avoiding style of conflict mode because they avoided the psychology of the crowd and just continued to follow orders and remove Mr. Lee and Ms. Wong as soon as possible instead of possibly accompanying them out in handcuffs, which would have helped to appease the crowd and potentially cause a less hostile environment. I'll now pass on my time to Parthiban.
Thank you, Lasmin. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Parthi. I'll be presenting 3 communication failures during the riot, the conflict management mode adopted by the police as a result, and then I'll wrap up the recommendation. Take a look at this timeline. This timeline represents the incompetency of our riot response. Take a look at the amount of time they took to request and then to approve and then for the SOC troops to arrive. This is far too long and totally unacceptable. first failing is communications. Our communications were non-existent, and that's something we really have to work on. These are words from the former Commissioner of Police, and this shows how important communication is in the operations of SPF. I'll be sharing these three communication failures: mass communication with the crowd, requesting backup, and SOC convoys route of advancement. Mass communication with the crowd. Frontline officers were not equipped with suitable mass communication devices such as loudspeakers and PA systems. As a result, they were not able to communicate key messages to the crowd and dispel misperception and mistruth from spreading. They were also not able to mass communicate warnings to disperse the crowd. Requesting backup. ASP Jonathan Tang was one of the first responders on the ground that night. After assessing the ground situation, he wanted to comms back through his radio set to request for backup. But with the noise of the crowd, he couldn't tell whether they heard him or if there was a reply. So on the night, police officers faced this difficulty of using their radio set above the noise of the crowd. And adding on to that, too many messages were being sent over the same frequency, and that jammed the radio set. SOC convoys route of advancement. DAC Lu was a senior officer on the ground. He contacted the Combined Operations Room COR to inform the SOC troops brief them about the route of advancement. But the instruction relayed by the COR was unclear and caused a bit of confusion. I'd like to draw your attention to this map. As the incoming SOC troops come down Bukit Timah Road, as we reach this junction, they should have turned left onto Racecourse Road, but instead they went straight and made a long detour. And this detour cost them 15 minutes because of the multiple stoppings along the way and heavy traffic. This 15 minutes is a very long time given the rate of destruction and damage that was happening. As a result of all this miscommunication, communication failures, and other contributing factors, the police had to take the avoiding mode of conflict management. There was a sizable number of police officers on the ground, but everyone was scattered around and unaware of each other's position. With the lack of communication, they couldn't coordinate to form a critical defensive unit. As such, they had to take the wait-and-see approach. Only when the SOC arrived, then they transited into the competing mode to disperse the crowd. Recommendations: first up, frontline officers should be equipped with mass communication devices and warning equipment. Secondly, the radio set should be upgraded such that it's still effective in noisy environment. Third, establish a priority protocol such that the commander's message and orders can be heard by all officers and above all other messages. Last but not least, establishing direct communication lines instead of relaying messages. For example, connecting DAC Lu with the SOC convoy's commander would have prevented unnecessary confusion. And with that, I end my part of the presentation, and I'd like to hand on the time to Myo. Thank you.
Thanks, Party. Well, Party pointed out the importance of communication during a crisis, but more often than so, crisis one way or another, sooner or later will end. And it is the mess after the crisis that is very tough to clean up. And hence, in fact, the communication aspect of almost all crises, post-crisis, is actually more complex, more complicated. In Little India crisis, for instance, we see that the number of parties involved after the crisis, the riot itself, is actually more. Not just the police force and the victims and the rioters in the crisis is involved, but also there's a large array of various parties involved, like the ministries, and of course the COI, which Kumar just now mentioned, the Committee of Inquiry and Investigation Team. I'd like to, and of course there's also the media bodies, which plays a very crucial role in the post-crisis fiasco. I want to, for my part, I will be concentrating on three aspects. the COI's involvement and international media's involvement, as well as the social media's involvement in this picture. Okay, COI's role in this is COI played a very important and crucial role in handling these crises. In fact, it uses the collaborative mode of response in response to this conflict. In a way, it is actually more optimal. It's actually sensible because it helps to repair the emotions, emotional damage, psychological damage. There are two specific examples that depicts how it is collaborative. It actually invites the public to send in their views via the Ministry of Home Affairs. So it collects statements from NGOs and the public for 26 days to study and to be in view of the whole analysis of the entire incident. And also, the public hearing was conducted in open court. There's no restriction with the media or public attendance to establish transparency and credibility for this event. Okay. Of course, the media actually plays a very important role in the post-crisis stage. I want to point out this the one incident in international media. Actually, this event is actually covered worldwide by all major networks, TV networks or newspaper agencies. Two of which actually link the event with ethnic elements, more so than other groups, other networks. FT actually, if you read this, our FT's title on the next day, Monday, Riot tarnishes Singapore's image as place of ethnic harmony. But actually, there's nothing really wrong with it, but it's not factually incorrect, but it actually ties up with ethnic as a reason. The more serious error is actually done by the India Sun TV network. MFA, it actually says that there's three factual inaccuracies in the whole report. MFA actually adopted a more competitive mode of response and asking for apology, which indeed Sun TV later on actually sent to the consulate. Here's the competing skills. As well, it's actually very good because the competing mode of response actually prompted a very fast response from the Sun TV. This social media, there's actually a very interesting study done by NTU's Wiki School. The research team actually analyzed the Twitter data, and this is the summary. It concludes that actually Twitter is being used as an information sharing and communicate emotions through the early stages of the crisis. And more importantly, actually, this one insight which is actually quite heartening is that some of them actually call for more positive response by the entire public. This is just a diagram showing how it is used as an information sharing across the timeline. And this one is actually emotive cues. There's satires, there's a diminishing response, there's denials. And social media, in the case of Little India Riot, it captures actually all the elements of the conflict responses modes. In fact, what it can be used, the insight is that for future crises, the data from social media can actually be used by stakeholders to better understand the emotions of the public and respond accordingly. Thank you. I'll pass the time to Jeff to conclude.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Dave, and I'll be going through how the lessons learned can be applied to the general workforce. Now, the lessons learned from our case studies are having proper communication traits, having a good chain of command, and having intercultural collaboration. Proper communication traits. In cases of crisis and non-crisis, it is good to be able to relay information to a large scale of people all at once, as this will greatly facilitate organization and collaboration. Now, for example, we have a group of workers working in an offshore marine company, and let's say a crisis occurs, maybe an oil or gas leak. So now having good communication devices such as PA systems, loudspeakers, would definitely aid in controlling the situation as well as preventing widespread panic among the workers. Another example would be several groups or teams working together on a mining project. Having specific communication devices like walkie-talkies would definitely help teams communicate with each other in places with low reception, such as in these mines. Having a chain of command. Now, the significance of a person in charge models that of a bridge. They act as a two-way communication platform by relaying information from the higher-ups to the employees, as well as providing feedback from the employees back to the higher-ups. An example of such services which would greatly benefit from a good chain of command would be the police and the fire combatants. In cases of law enforcement or fire outbreaks, a supervisor will be able to disseminate information and orders to the various sections and should be kept well informed at all times. Another example would be in hospitals when nurses are supervised by doctors, and in a non-crisis situation, schools where teachers guide their assistants. Intercultural collaboration. In any workplace, there is guaranteed to be some discrepancy between workers due to their different cultural backgrounds. What one might consider to be appropriate manner and behavior will be misinterpreted by others who come up from different upbringings. However, this can be overcome as long as one is willing to accept change and accept different ideologies. For example, imagine if you were working in an MNC, and this MNC employs multinationalities, and your new task now is to work together with these different people. Such exposure to these different environments would definitely aid one in understanding and accepting others, as well as improving one's CQ level. Local context-wise, in Singapore, we have many different races living here, which would result in a clash of different values and thinking. However, with several cross-racial and intercultural integration sessions like celebrating Racial Harmony Day, we grew tolerant of one another. With the large inflow of foreign workers, the Singaporeans have started to accept them into our society and our workforce. As compared to the locals who grew up here with us, there will be a slower rate of acceptance for foreign workers. However, I believe that with time, Singaporeans will be accepting of them as well. Now, that will be the end of our presentation, and we'll open the floor now for any questions you guys might have. Thank you.
We have some questions. Please.
Yeah,
do you think that such an incident will happen again in the future? Like similar situation?
Is it open to everyone?
Yeah.
Direct question to everyone. Well, there were several other long-term events that happened, which led up to the frustration that occurred on the riot, on the day of the riot. But they weren't the immediate causes. But if we give them a situation where it acts in the same, where the people are in the same elevated state of mind, where they're ready for conflict, then yeah, it could happen again. Because there are a lot of other reasons that were not the immediate causes of the riot, such as the workers' living conditions, the employment conditions, yeah. So there were other reasons as well. But in my opinion, I believe that if they were pushed to the brink again, it might happen.
I want that slide. The
First
first
one.
one. Little India Riot. You said the miscommunication aggravated the situation. What is the main idea of this case?
Okay, okay, this is how we see the Little case, right case study. So there could be a lot of other factors that probably caused it, long-term effects, we were treated badly and stuff. But what we saw mainly that was lacking here is the miscommunication. For example, when the SPF, SCDF and Cisco responders, they shielded the bus driver and the time people away, right? They could have reacted differently. They could have said they are being arrested away, or they're being questioned, or they're being escorted to be questioned or something else. There was a miscommunication between the responders and the rioters. So the rioters thought they are siding them. So that's the first miscom. The other miscom you would see is within the SPF itself. How efficient we were to get the SOC to come down, and even the deployment route, that's miscom itself. So this situation could have been handled like maybe less than half an hour or something, but it got longer than an hour or so because of the miscom. So as such, we believe that it's aggravated because of miscom.
So your case study is used to illustrate how this,
How the conflict was managed.
but your topic is miscommunication.
The way we
Why did
define
you,
miscommunication is
how did you end up talking about conflict management?
the lack, the way we define it is the lack of communication, unclear and false or wrong information that was passed down. So we try to study the case, like where these communication failures occurred, and as a result of these communication failures, what were the results of this, and what are the improvements that could have been made to avoid these communication failures.
So how to avoid this miscommunication is to improve on the communication, right? But I don't see how this improving this miscommunication is related to conflict management.
Well, you see, the slides, for example, we're trying to see they handle this, for example, my class, the police handle the situation as such, as a result of the communication failures. So the communication failures that we mentioned earlier were the result of them handling the situation as such. Let's say they had proper communication. For my first point, mass communication with the crowd. If they were there with let's say mass communicating devices, they would have emphasized the presence of authority there.
So if they have better communication means they
Yeah.
Sort of like
Handle
handle the situation better.
better. Then you can be really competing or compromising.
So in that sense, you are still saying that if they have better communication, right? If they had communicated better, they wouldn't have